Hi, everyone. Thanks again for joining us for the Pro Bono Recognition Ceremony. My name is Hannah Fine. I'm the Pro Bono and Public Interest Coordinator. We're here this afternoon to recognize graduating students who have completed at least 50 hours of pro bono service during their time at the law school. Now we'll have some remarks from Tom Miles, Dean of the Law School, who will welcome us.
Thanks, Hannah. Thank you very much. And thank you, everybody, for joining us this afternoon to celebrate the members of our community and recognize their pro bono service. It's really great to have this opportunity to extend this recognition and to celebrate their accomplishments and their contributions to serving others. Uh, as we all know, it's been an extraordinarily challenging year. And this year, our graduating students completed over 14,000 pro bono hours. This is by far the most hours ever recorded. It's an astonishing accomplishment. It is remarkable in any moment, but especially in this time of just incredible challenge over the past 12 months. And 47 of our students completed the pro bono service initiative by completing at least 50 hours of pro bono work. And an additional 26 students will receive the pro bono honors for completing 250 hours of pro bono service. So congratulations to everyone, and thank you for your service to our community and to our profession. Fields like law and I think medicine are traditionally viewed not as just jobs, but they really are professions. Specialized training is required to enter them. It requires a license from a state. It's not just a job one can take. It's a real privilege to be able to be part of these professions. And as a result of that privilege, it was very much a tradition that with that privilege came certain responsibilities. And one of those responsibilities in the legal profession was to give back to the community and to serve the community. And for some, this meant the pursuit of an entire career in public interest. But for everyone in the profession, it should mean providing some pro bono service and a commitment to real professional excellence in all of the service one provides, both in pro bono and, of course, for profit clients. And so every year, our pro bono service awards remind our community of this important pro bono duty, and it encourages pro bono service and public service at the law school. So I'm confident that those students that are representing the law school today and that are graduating today are going to fulfill this obligation, especially in light of this incredible news of the number of pro bono hours that were provided this year. It really is astonishing. It's an incredible way for our 3L class, our class of 2020, to launch their legal careers. So I'm sorry, I said class of 2020, 2021. I've forgotten what year it is. So please join me in extending congratulations to the recipients of the Pro Bono Service Initiative and our Pro Bono and Public Service Awards. Please join me and give a clap to everyone or give your virtual clap. This is a great accomplishment, and thank you to all of our students in the class of 2021 who provided pro bono service over this year. So thank you, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. And now I'm pleased to turn the program back over to Hannah Fine.
Thanks so much, Tom, for your kind and important words, and of course, for your ongoing support of pro bono service at the law school. As young lawyers, I hope you continue to provide meaningful pro bono service, not only to fulfill your ethical and professional obligation, but also to engage in valuable learning experiences and to seize the opportunity to use your skills to serve those most in need. For all of the 1Ls and 2Ls here, I hope you're inspired by the work of these 3Ls and their passion and commitment to public service. Just to elaborate a bit on the numbers that Tom already mentioned, and to give them some perspective, last year the class of 2020 logged over 12,000 pro bono hours, which at the time was by far the greatest number of hours ever. And at this point, they've now logged for this year more than 14,000. So you can see the great increases year over year, and we really hope that trend can continue. And not only in the number of hours, but also the value of the hours and the support they can give to our community and to various other communities. And now for our speaker, Samira Nazem, a 2010 graduate of the law school and currently the Associate Director of Advocacy and Programs for the Chicago Bar Foundation. There will be time for questions after her remarks, so feel free to send them to me over the chat feature or to raise your hand after her remarks. Thanks so much, Samira.
Thanks, Hannah, and hello and good afternoon, everyone. I am so honored to be here today. As Hannah said, I'm a 2010 alum of the law school, and my name's Samira, and I've spent the last decade or so working in the legal aid and access to justice community here in Chicago. I started out after law school as a legal aid attorney and pro bono coordinator. I then spent some time working for the Illinois Supreme Court Access to Justice Commission, and now, as Hannah said, I work at the Chicago Bar Foundation as the Associate Director of Pro Bono and Advocacy, and in that role, I wear two different hats. I oversee our pro bono work with law firms and legal aid organizations, and I also oversee our policy work with the state court system. And I really just wanted to take a few minutes of our time together today to just tell you a little bit about my journey from law school into this work. And hopefully this will be interesting to some of you, and I'm happy to answer any questions at the end of this as well. So like all of you, I spent my 3 years at the law school learning to be a lawyer, right? How to think like a lawyer, write like a lawyer, act like a lawyer. I got an incredible education, met wonderful people, and I learned so much that has been so helpful to me in so many ways. But the one thing that I did not do a good job of in law school was spend time thinking about people who don't have lawyers. That was a real blind spot of mine until after I graduated. After my graduation, I went to work at a legal aid organization in downtown Chicago that is focused on housing work. I ran their pro bono program, and I also represented tenants in eviction court proceedings. I had developed an interest in housing law while I was at the U of C through the Poverty and Housing Law Seminar, so it was a really perfect opportunity for me. And when I started working in eviction court at the time, it turned out I wasn't entirely prepared for it. I was in for a very, very rude awakening about some of the unpleasant realities of our court system. Eviction court is not a welcoming place. It is not the good place. So kind of a few things that really jump out when I look back on kind of those early years of practice about eviction court and kind of some of the broader implications for access to justice. Are that words matter. So first of all, it turned out that eviction court wasn't even called eviction court. It was actually called forcible entry and detainer court, a name that seemed intentionally designed to keep anyone from knowing what was happening. Second of all, court is not actually orderly. Sometimes it is completely chaotic. The eviction courtrooms were like cattle calls where there would be upwards of 100 cases on the docket at any given time. Half of the tenants weren't going to show up on a given day. Of the people who did come to court, the overwhelming majority, over 90% of them, didn't have lawyers. And the racial disparities in these courtrooms were immediately apparent to anybody who walked into them. And the court data confirms that eviction filing rates are 4 to 5 times higher in majority Black and Brown communities than in predominantly white ones. Yet another legacy of Chicago's history of discriminatory housing policies. And against that backdrop, I was representing clients who had deeply sad stories to tell, stories of landlords who had discriminated against them or retaliated against them, stories of families who were living in uninhabitable or unsafe living conditions because they couldn't afford to go anywhere else, families who were living paycheck to paycheck where one unexpected expense or emergency could send them into a downward spiral of eviction or homelessness. And my clients were still comparatively lucky in those courtrooms because they had a legal aid lawyer. The other 90% of the people who were sitting there didn't have anyone to help them tell their story. They were left to navigate the court system completely on their own. And that's the thing that I didn't know in law school. I didn't learn until after the fact that has really dramatically shaped my career since then. In our state civil courts, over 60% of litigants don't have lawyers. They're left trying to navigate this Byzantine court system completely on their own while their housing, financial well-being, family stability, safety hangs in the balance. And our courts weren't designed for them. Our courts were designed for a version of justice where there's a lawyer on both sides in every case. And that's not the norm. That's not the default in our state court system now. And it has created these huge challenges, huge problems. And that's exactly why the pro bono work and public interest work that all of you do matters so much. The need is astronomical. The stakes are incredibly high. And the courts are straining to try to process all of these cases. And legal aid organizations like my old one are chronically underfunded and understaffed when they try to do this work. So back when I was a legal aid pro bono coordinator, I worked with volunteers like a lot of you on this call, law students, but also attorneys from big firms, small firms, in-house lawyers, government lawyers, We would welcome anyone, no matter how much or how little experience they had. I'd work with all of these new pro bono attorneys, trying to prepare them to handle eviction court on their own, showing them how to navigate the courthouse, how to draft an order, because in state court, the lawyers have to draft their own orders, and even how to use carbon paper, because until 2020, our courthouse in downtown Chicago still ran on carbon paper. And when I would meet with these new pro bono lawyers, I'd hear the same concerns over and over again from people who weren't sure if they could do it, right? Things like, I'm not a litigator, I've never been to court before, I don't really know much about housing law, that's not my area of practice, or I'm just so busy right now, and maybe things will calm down in a few months. And here's a life lesson for all of you graduating. You will never be less busy in a few months. You just have to make the time now. So all of those concerns are such valid ones. But the reality is those are the same concerns that we hear from pro bono clients. They're not litigators either. They've never been to court before. They're not very well versed in housing law. They're also juggling a lot of other commitments in their lives, and they definitely don't know how to use carbon paper. But lawyers have an intangible benefit over them. They're lawyers, right? They were trained to do this. This is a system that was built for them. And I know I don't need to convince those of you on this call today to do pro bono work and that you can do pro bono work. That's why you're here today. You're already making this a part of your legal career. You already understand the value of public service, and you're figuring out ways to fit into your legal career, which is amazing. But that's why I also want to take a few minutes today to talk about the other part of my work and how I hope that can also fit into your legal careers, and that's work around broader issues of court advocacy and access to justice. Because solving some of these huge foundational issues in our court system takes more than just pro bono work. Pro bono work, of course, is important. You should do it, and then you should do more of it and keep doing it. But pro bono alone isn't enough. We also have to fix a lot of the underlying deficiencies in our justice system that make it so inaccessible and so dysfunctional for so many people. Our courts were designed for a world that doesn't exist anymore, and we have to force them to adapt to the new normal. And that's why the work of organizations like the Access to Justice Commission here, where I used to work, and my current employer, the Bar Foundation, are really, really crucial. In addition to supporting legal aid and pro bono organizations and trying to lift up their work and increase their capacity, they also try to improve and reform the court system so it can work better for everyone, including both lawyers and litigants. And so that means on the civil side, we're trying to find ways to make court work better for the renters in eviction court, but also for the survivors of domestic violence who need an order of protection, or people who are looking for a second chance who need to expunge a criminal record, and everyone else who relies on our civil courts to help them secure basic rights and protections. There's so much work to happen in this space to make our courts more user-centered and user-friendly, and to make the system work better for everyone. So I want to kind of just end by giving you a few examples of going back to eviction court about how we've actually been able to start doing some of that work in the eviction courtrooms here in Chicago. So I kind of gave you a little bit of a sense of what it looked like when I started practicing, which was only 10 years ago. And so it's really not that long a period of time. But even just in this last decade, we've made huge changes in trying to kind of move the needle about what court looks like and how court interacts with the people who are there. So we've now renamed it. So our old forcible entry and detainer courts are now called eviction courts. We were able to pass legislation in Springfield to rename those courtrooms. And it may seem like a small thing, but it's actually very powerful for a litigant to get court papers or to hear a judge using words that they can understand that make them feel like they can participate in their legal case. Outreach to reduce some of those high default rates. Our courts have been trying to develop community partnerships and find new outreach strategies to reposition courts as a place that are accessible and welcome to everyone, rather than somewhere you would never want to go, other than being dragged there kicking and screaming. New forms, we've tried to move away from archaic legal jargon and to use more plain language. Our courts now try to user test all of their paperwork on lawyers to make sure they can be understood by everyone who comes through the courthouse doors. They've also started translating resources and automating them too, because the courts need to be accessible to everyone, not just English speakers. And that part of that means making courts accessible remotely as well. And most recently, over the last year, we've been able to use the pandemic as a catalyst to radically change how eviction court works here in Cook County. Through a recent partnership with the legal aid community, the private bar, the circuit court, and the county, We've been able to reorient eviction court, so it is now a place that is focused more on resolving cases in the least harmful way, rather than on processing cases as quickly as possible. Thanks to some of the COVID recovery funds that came through the CARES Act and the American Rescue Plan, we've been able to hire case managers, legal aid attorneys, and mediators who are now embedded into every eviction call in Cook County. So every self-represented litigant has a chance to speak with a lawyer and to get help before going before a judge. And those program partners can help them apply for rental assistance or negotiate repayment plans and try to find more holistic and sustainable ways to resolving issues. We want everyone who doesn't have a lawyer to have that opportunity to get help by taking some of the randomness out of who gets legal help, who finds a pro bono lawyer, and who doesn't. Now the court is actively providing those services to the public rather than putting the burden on them to seek out help. And this wouldn't have been possible without years of advocacy, big and small, from the entire legal community. And that means, yes, legal aid and pro bono lawyers, but also big firms down to solo practitioners, government partners, judges, and everyone else kind of coming together to say we have to change this system that isn't working. And the wonderful thing is that all of these changes benefit legal aid and pro bono lawyers as well as litigants. When the court system is working better, it works better for everyone. So with that, I thank all of you for the pro bono work that you're doing. I encourage you to keep doing it, and also to look even beyond that for other ways that you can help make our justice system better and further access to justice in your legal community, be it here in Chicago or wherever you end up once you're in practice. So consider joining a board, donate to legal aid and other advocacy groups, get involved in your local bar association, and look for committees that can keep you informed about these issues. And when you're taking on pro bono cases, ask questions. Talk with your partner organizations about opportunities to change things that aren't working for your pro bono clients. Folks who are taking those cases on the ground are sometimes our best source of information about where we need to target our advocacy to make changes that are systemic and can go beyond one individual case. So there's so many different ways to be an ambassador for pro bono and access to justice more broadly. And I encourage you to just think big and think creatively as you look for ways to integrate this into your practice, whatever path you may take after graduation. So again, I know I'm preaching to the choir. I know that you are all here because you're the pro bono champions already, and you found ways to do that in the middle of a global pandemic. So I can only imagine what you'll be able to do when you're not limited to what can happen on Zoom and over the phone. So just let me be another voice saying thank you for your service, and keep doing exactly what you're doing going forward, because there is still so much more work to be done. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions right now, and I'm also happy to speak with folks afterwards if you want to reach out to me by email.
Thank you so much, Samira. I think we have our first question from Susan Curry.
Yes, I tend to leap in right away. Thank you, Samira. I just, when you were talking about the need, the overwhelming need and the obstacles, I started to, pant a little bit. And it can't help me, it can't help but make me wonder how you feel about the sort of controversial notion of mandatory pro bono that so many states and localities and schools have been adopting.
My position on this, not speaking on behalf of the Bar Foundation, as a former pro bono coordinator, I don't love the idea of mandatory pro bono, because there's nothing worse than having to take an unwilling, reluctant pro bono volunteer and try to get them to do something. As a legal aid organization, you want people who want to learn, and it's fine if you need to spend time investing in them and training them, but ultimately you want people who have the same goals as your organization, as your clients. So I think there's a lot we can do to encourage pro bono, to support pro bono, to remove barriers to doing pro bono, but I stop a little short of wanting to see everyone forced to do pro bono. I think there are other ways people can support the community if that's just not what they choose to do.
We also had another question about your focus on access to justice and how important that's been for you, especially recently. Were there any law school experiences of yours, whether a class, a pro bono experience, internship, externship, that you think either at the time or in retrospect sort of helped chart that path for you?
I did a poverty and housing law seminar, which was taught by a couple legal aid attorneys at what was then Legal Assistance Foundation and is now Legal Aid Chicago. So that was really instrumental because it gave me my first exposure both to legal aid and to housing. that honestly, sometimes some of the things that I got out of law school that are most helpful are just learning to manage people who have kind of different viewpoints from you and try to build consensus around tricky issues. I think the university has passionate people with a lot of different ideas and political leanings. And I think that has been something I didn't realize at the time would be one of the most useful skills I gained in law school, just kind of really being able to bring people with various ideas and different institutional priorities together and to coalesce around a certain idea.
Well, thank you so much for speaking and for sharing your past few experiences. Really appreciate that. Next, we have Susan Curry, our Senior Director of Public Interest Law and Policy, and she'll be presenting the Public Service Awards.
Thanks. I appreciate the time. I really thank you all for coming and taking a short break in this very busy spring quarter. It is a very busy spring quarter, but there's really no better time to thank our graduating 3Ls for their pro bono service. But before we get to thanking the 3Ls for their pro bono service, we have a few special awards to bestow. Now, with our first two awards, we acknowledge the commitment to public interest law of two individual students, one 2L and one 3L. Now, these two awards are part of a long-standing, nearly 2 decades long standing tradition by our own Public Interest Law Society, known affectionately here as PILS. Each year, PILS solicits nominations for these two awards and organizes a panel of alumni judges to review those nominations. These alumni judges, they span many class years, they span the nation, and also various sectors of public interest practice, state, local, and federal government, nonprofits, and so forth. They're charged with choosing one 3L and one 2L who show the strongest commitment to and the most outstanding accomplishments in public interest work. And of course, one of the best features of these PILS Awards is that each comes with a $500 cash prize, thanks to the generous benefaction of our distinguished alumna, James C. Hormel, from the class of 1958. So, as you can see, I'd like to start with our 3L Hormel Public Service Award winner, Kyle Kent. If you'll just give me a moment to tell you a little bit about what the judges found so persuasive about Kyle. Before law school, Kyle got a taste of criminal defense by interning at the Champaign County Public Defender's Office. And he stayed active throughout undergrad. He volunteered for the Sanders 2016 presidential campaign. He interned for a state district office. He ran a campaign for an elder care alliance. And on campus, he was also involved in several public interest groups, such as the Illini Voter Coalition, through which he helped register students and turn out the vote in local elections. Then during his time in law school, he spent his summers working at, of course, our own criminal and juvenile justice project, and then at two different federal defenders, actually, one in Milwaukee, and then as a 2L summer at the Federal Defender of Chicago. Kyle is also a pro bono superstar, dedicating more than 700 hours himself during his time in law school. He volunteered not only with the Federal Defender of Chicago, but for the Woodlawn Legal Aid Clinic, that many of you know is run by Legal Aid Chicago, right in our neighborhood. And he also spent his 1L spring break at the Knox County Public Defender's Community Office in Knoxville, Tennessee. So if you all could just join me, and maybe Kyle, you can make a sound or something, join me with some Zoom reactions or congratulations for Kyle Kent. Congratulations. Now, next, our 2L Public Service Award winner is Eric Zimmerman. Before law school, Eric was living in New York studying philosophy, when he became interested in many social movements. Like so many of us, he became incensed by the constant police violence he witnessed against Black people. He actively protested. He worked as an ally with the Black Lives Matter movement. And as happens, he became more involved in community activism. It led him naturally, inevitably maybe, to law school. where he is now gaining the skills to help truly make an impact on the lives of vulnerable people. While at the law school, Eric has had the chance to apply his interests in social activism to a legal framework. Last summer, and continuing throughout the current academic year, he has worked with the Civil Rights and Police Accountability Project. After law school, he hopes to work in both litigation and policy to advocate for the rights of individuals with death sentences, to advocate for prisoner reform, other criminal justice reform, the rights of indigent defendants, and he's interested in policy reforms as well, focusing on changing arcane drug and crime laws that especially target people of color. So now you can join me in reacting and congratulating with some Zoom reactions, Eric Zimmerman, our 2L award winner. Nice job, gentlemen. My one final award, this is goes to a student organization. We started recognizing pro bono student organizations a few years ago so that we could recognize a specific student group that demonstrated its commitment to providing quality legal services to the underrepresented. And this year's winner of the Student Organization of the Year goes to our very own National Lawyers Guild chapter. In particular, this award is in recognition of NLG's prisoner letter writing project. And if you'll let me just quickly summarize that work here. About a year ago, NLG partnered with a Chicago chapter of Black and Pink to establish this pro bono project dedicated to helping LGBTQ prisoners, and specifically to helping them find answers to their pressing legal questions. So the incarcerated would submit to Black and Pink their requests for legal information. Many requests came from transgender women inquiring about legal issues related to gender affirming placements, access to hormone treatment, assault, improper conduct in the prison. And that NLG prisoner letter writing project trained and organized U of C law students to reply to these prisoners, and the lawyers at Lovey and Lovey provided supervision for the project. So I saw Laura Herrera on the call. Laura and Austin Fewer and any NLG members, we want to congratulate you as well on this Pro Bono Student Organization Award.
Thank you so much, Susan. Now I'll go ahead and congratulate the students who have completed the Pro Bono Service Initiative. This is 50 hours or more of pro bono service, but under 250 hours. We want to take the time to congratulate all of these students. Feel free to share your reactions over the Zoom feature. We're really appreciative of all the hard work that they have done. And these are additional students who've completed 50 or more hours. There were 47 students in total, as we mentioned before. So really impressive, the number of hours they completed and also how many of the 3L graduating students participated in the program, which is fantastic. We also want to congratulate those students receiving pro bono honors, and that's students who have done 250 hours or more of pro bono work. And some of these students have done hundreds and hundreds of hours more than 250, which is really impressive when we think about how rigorous the UChicago Law School program is. So congratulations to Daniel Abrams, Alex Aparicio, Stephen Ark, Evelyn Aye, Sam Bonafide, Christy Kraus, Ben Feist, David Finkel, Ellen Goff, Anthony Gutman, Jake Hamburger, Zach Heater, Laura Herrera, Victor Hollenberg, Chelsea Kerr, Kyle Kent, Max Kober, Jessica Lee, Colin Losey, Joseph Ludmir, Anna Lacerna, Barrett Mills, Angela Riley, David Silberthau, Daniel Simon, and Emma Sperry. So congratulations to all of these students. I know the organizations you've worked at really appreciate all of your help over the years, and we hope you continue to be as giving of your time as you are when you are a full attorney. So thank you again. Next, we'll move on to the Pro Bono Award of Excellence. This award is given to the graduating 3L who has done the most hours of pro bono service during their time here at the law school. This year, the award goes to Evelyn Aye. She completed 768 hours of pro bono, which is a pretty amazing number, all of them at Equip for Equality in Chicago, where she'll start as a fellow this fall. She was also very active at the law school as well, serving as the vice president of the Education and Child Advocacy Society. And she also served on the Provost Accessibility Student Advisory Board. So congratulations to Evelyn, and now she'll share some remarks for us.
Hi, everyone. It's so wonderful to be here and celebrating everyone's wonderful dedication to public service and pro bono. I think as future lawyers, we inherently feel a call to action when we see injustice, but we also have a pretty acute understanding of some of the systemic challenges and administrative challenges in trying to achieve deep change and meaningful change in our communities. But despite this, I know that so many of us really rose above the weight of the circumstances this past year by digging in and doing more. And I think it's just so wonderful and important to recognize that this culture exists at the law school and to celebrate everyone's accomplishments today. Like Hannah said, I volunteered at Equip for Equality, which is the federal protection and advocacy agency for people with disabilities in Illinois throughout law school. And so I was able to represent families on pretty long-term cases. So in briefly reflecting on my own pro bono experience, there was one particular case that came to mind that I wanted to share. And it's the story of one of my clients who, for our purposes today, I'll call Mira. This past year, I received a call from Mira's mother. She told me that her daughter had a mental health crisis at school, and rather than be supported by her school, she had been arrested during class. And this incident was incredibly harmful for the school community, but also deeply traumatic for Mira, and she refused to go to school for over a year after the incident. Despite the clear egregiousness of the circumstances and the situation, that how it had unfolded, there were several challenges with actually the legal advocacy piece, just based on current deficiencies in state and federal law with how to support students like Mira and lack of guarantee to access to appropriate mental health services for young students in school. But despite this, it was clear that Mira's parents were incredible advocates and had been really passionately and persistently advocating for her, but not having any success. And it was clear that legal intervention was necessary to try and support Mira and her family. So over the 6 months that followed, I assisted in developing a legal framework over common sense, which is this idea that students really should have access to a safe school environment and appropriate mental health services. And through legal advocacy, it was able to secure a new school placement for Mira at no cost to her family, which was paid for by her school district, which ultimately could provide her with a really holistic set of supports. And most importantly, it could provide a safe environment for Mira to go to school. And at the end of this process, I was so incredibly excited for Mira, but I also felt a bit of perseveration in knowing that there were other students like Mira that existed, the magnitude of the problem and the systemic injustices, and really questioned if whether what I was doing was enough. But after a while after Mira had transferred, I had the opportunity to go to a meeting with her new school, and it was immediately obvious how this new program really saw Mira as an individual. They understood what her needs were, and they really wanted to help her reach her maximum potential and really be successful, not only in school, but as she transitioned into the community. And this really, I wanted to share Mira's story because it reminded me of the importance of empowering individuals, even among systemic injustices, and recognizing that piece is really important and can have a watershed effect on communities, even when you're working at the individual level. And so this is really just a really roundabout way of saying, I guess, that I hope that this feeling that we all have in law school of wanting to dig in, and this feeling that we really had this past year of rising above some of that paralysis that is possible to feel in light of just the breadth of the systemic injustices, is something that we can all carry with us into the future, whether it's finding time to do pro bono at a law firm or pursuing a career in public interest. Knowing that, we don't, and we certainly won't always know the magnitude of the work that we're doing and the impact that it will have, but that doesn't mean that the work itself isn't worth doing. So congratulations, everyone, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and congratulations. And congratulations to all of our award winners, but also just those of you who participate and give back and give of your time. We're really hopeful that going forward, all of you will do great things in your chosen fields, but also make sure to give back, whether it is through pro bono, as Evelyn mentioned, or through the main part of your career. So thank you again, and congratulations. One more round of regular applause, Zoom applause for all of our award winners and graduates. So thank you.